Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 276, cover dated May 1991. So the cover here is by Jubilee and Scott Williams. It's a pretty dramatic cover, very striking. You can imagine this one popping on the shelves with the all white background and the basic color scheme of blue, red, and a bit of yellow there as well. So Charles Xavier here, Professor X, having been stabbed by Wolverine with his claws. We can see a little bit of black blood on the Professor, on his arms, and here on his clothing, but none in fact on Wolverine's claws. That may be an editorial decision just to dampen down the explicit violence of the cover. So let's open up to the splash page here, which features Gambit and Jubilee picking up from the end of the last issue, 275, where they have been surreptitiously observing Professor X torturing Deathbird and psychically enslaving Gladiator and his girlfriend Oracle. So Gambit there is telling Jubilee to keep quiet. The creative team here, Chris Claremont and Jim Lee, chief creators, Scott Williams inking. Patrick Brusso rather than Orzechowski is the letterer for this issue, and Joe Rosas rather than Glynis Oliver is the colorist. So around this time, Rosas is beginning to increasingly colour Lee's work on the X-Men, and indeed he is the chief colorist on the second title, Adjectiveless X-Men or X-Men Volume 2, when it begins in a few months' time. So over the page, and we have this not quite double page splash of Gladiator holding up Deathbird, who's struggling against him. Remember, at this point, Gladiator and Oracle here in the background are enslaved agents of Professor X. We see some interesting colouring effects here by Rosas on this object here, and the magenta behind the profile of Xavier's face, and markings on Deathbird's helmet mask as well. So Gladiator rips out Deathbird's wings viciously and holds her up in triumph. So Gambit, who's been watching here and who has advised Jubilee to stay quiet, decides, makes a snap decision to attack and help Deathbird out. As he says to Jubilee, "Apologies, Jubilee, I guess when you wear the uniform of a hero, hey, I guess sometime you got to act the part." So he attacks Gladiator. Deathbird uses the distraction to attack Professor X from behind with her claws, and Jubilee leaps into action as well, but protesting Gambit's decision. So she's psychically locked by Professor X, but Deathbird and Gambit take on Gladiator, and Gambit uses Gladiator's cloak to blind Professor X. Then he grabs Jubilee, and they are, Gladiator throws the unconscious Deathbird at them, and they leap away from her, and her body crashes through the wall and reveals an imprisoned Lila Cheney. These manacles she's wearing prevent her from using her mutant power of cosmic level teleportation. So she asks Gambit to help her get the manacles off. But in the meantime, there is an attack by Shi'ar troops, and they blast away with their automatic guns. But Gambit is so agile he's able to evade the shots, which Lila Cheney marvels at. So on Deathbird's instruction, they teleport away, and that leaves Gambit and Jubilee open to attack by Gladiator again. So Gambit instructs Jubilee to send out a wave of her biggest fireworks. We have a nice effect here in the background, the use of duotone combined with Rose's choice of magenta. So a very striking panel here. Then Gambit charges up rocks and uses them to hit the fireworks, Jubilee's fireworks. And the effect of that is a massive explosion, which is heard and witnessed by Wolverine, who's out on the town. The planet is Chandalar, which is the throne world of the Shi'ar Empire. So he's been out on the town enjoying some tavern type brawls, but he sees the explosion and recognizes it as a blast signature of Jubilee's fireworks. So with his companion, he goes to investigate. Now, something I want to note about these 2 pages here is I'm suspicious that Scott Williams did not ink these pages, most particularly this page. And one of the reasons is, in this one too, is the way that Wolverine's body hair is rendered with these straight lines. And here the more small lines nonetheless, but not in Williams's trademark style. Also the way that these kind of backgrounds are rendered here, just these kind of action lines, that's not Scott Williams' inking line. So I'm not sure who inked these 2 pages, but I would lay money on it that it wasn't Scott Williams, and indeed it may be Carl Alstadter or someone else in the Homage Studio lineup pitching in to help out, maybe with a tight deadline turnaround. So what happens here is Wolverine arrives, the other X-Men arrive, Forge, Storm and Banshee on the scene, and everything seems well. Xavier commends Gladiator for protecting him, but Wolverine is sniffing around and investigating, and he decides to attack. And by the way, another note here, this kind of use of color here and here also is a trademark of Joe Rosas from around this time period. This is something he does to enliven and ornament otherwise blank backgrounds. Now this is definitely inked by Scott Williams, and this is a tremendous anchor image here of Wolverine fatally slashing Professor X, and you see here the way that the body hair is rendered. That is Scott Williams' style, and the speed or action lines as well. Tremendous panel, and then the shock in the side panels of everyone witnessing this. They don't understand what's happened. Forge is wondering what could have possessed Wolverine to do such a thing. Has he gone nuts, he says. And Psylocke intervenes and uses her psychic knife to render Wolverine unconscious. What happens then is there is a blast of light, and Lila Cheney and Deathbird reappear, toting huge guns. As Lila says, "We're back, 2 bad, beautiful babes with really big guns." Claremont trope, women with huge guns, going all the way back to the first time that Moira MacTaggart picked up an M16 in one of his earliest comics. So something Claremont sometimes himself makes a little bit of fun about, but this anchor image here, pretty cool by Jim Lee. So they start blasting away at everyone who isn't an X-Man, and then Lila teleports out with Forge, Storm and Banshee, but she's unable to reach Wolverine. So then we get the aftermath. and the fact that Professor X has been killed. So the counselor here uses an object to create an instant cremation of the body. And why would he want to do that? Well, something is going to be revealed before the end of the issue on that point. So then the Minister orders the Starjammers, Corsair there, and the other Starjammers to go after Deathbird and Lila Cheney and the X-Men, and to kill all the males and Deathbird, but to bring back Storm and Lila Cheney alive. So then our scene switches to where Lila has brought them to Epsilon Psychotia 9, this Pinder homeworld that has been the object of complete genocide on the orders of, as Deathbird explains, Professor X, who is Lilandra's warlord. So the X-Men are astonished and are shocked by this. Forge investigates one of the dwellings of the Pindar, and he comes across a doll of one of the Pindar children, and it really deeply disturbs him. Nice use of geotone there as well by Liam Williams. Storm intervenes and talks to Forge about how the X-Men are a team and how they need to work together in order to remedy what has happened. So he agrees to use his powers to whip up some transport for them, including the likes of this jetpack that Lila Cheney is wearing. Banshee is very suspicious of Deathbird, knowing her of old, but she explains that even though, you know, she is a vicious, violent character, she balks at genocide, and when the genocide occurred, she was Magistrix, and she regarded the Pindar and the other 8 worlds that were destroyed on Xavier's orders as her people and her responsibility. So that's enough for Storm. So they go forward with their plan. Then we pick up with the Starjammers again, and note on screen here the color hold, pretty cool. And so the Starjammers have identified that Deathbird is on that planet, and they're readying themselves to attack. But Deathbird and the others are coming to meet them. So something happens to Deathbird at this point. Someone or something gets into her mind. We would assume, well, Professor X appears to be dead, so who could it be? We don't know yet. But Deathbird picks up Lila Cheney and demands that they be teleported to another destination. That leaves Storm and Banshee attacking the Starjammers' starship, and Forge wondering about how on earth they're going to what they're going to achieve, or how they're going to survive against an entire starship. Then our scene switches to back to Chandelar and Wolverine and Jubilee being brought to this particular location. Psylocke using her psychic powers to dampen Jubilee's own powers and to maintain control over Lilandra. So Gladiator throws Wolverine to this off-panel creature called Manacle, who grabs him and Jubilee with these techno-organic tentacles. They're all kind of strung up in these techno-organic webs, and what happens is the Minister here is revealed to be a Skrull, specifically a war Skrull, which is a type of the alien species, the Skrull species, that can not only mimic the form and shape of other characters, chameleon-like, but also their powers. So, with Professor X dead, but it's revealed that it isn't the original Professor X, who's strung up here as part of this strange techno-organic matrix. The Prime War Skrull here makes a decision that he needs to be transformed into another Professor X, so that he and his team can maintain control of Lilandra. So that's what happens. He goes through this painful process and becomes Professor X with Professor X's mental powers. So Lilandra is delighted here. Again, she's under the influence of Psylocke's psychic powers, but it's revealed in these panels that this Psylocke is not the true Psylocke. She too is a War Skrull, and not only that, Oracle is there, so there's a War Skrull version of her walking around, and there are Starjammers strung up as well. So the Starjammers 2 that we've been witness to are not the originals, but are War Skrulls. So the issue concludes with Professor X determining that the battle is far from over. These fiends may hold Charles Xavier prisoner, but I am far from beaten, he says. So, as ever, in order to find out what happens next, we're going to have to pick up the next issue. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like the video, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.